Who Watches the Rewatchers, a Buffy rewatch podcast.
All right, Alan, let me just say this to you. In the world of parapsychology, did you know that there are certain forms of accepted hauntings?
I didn't know that. Tell me about it.
All right. Well, I'm going to make sure I double check myself so that I am not speaking out of school.
Okay.
In the world of parapsychology, often going by the popular nomenclature of psi or PSI, you have residual hauntings, which is almost like a tape being played back over time.
Okay.
There are intelligent hauntings where the ghost interacts with the world. There are poltergeist, which I think are, I'll have to look into exactly what that is. And there's inhuman. Yeah, so there's different ones, but I bring it up because today you and I have gathered to talk about the episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer called Only Have Eyes for You. This is season 2, episode 19. If you hear my voice, that's because you're listening to Who Watches the Rewatchers, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer rewatch podcast. I'm Jarrod. That's Alan.
Yo.
And in this episode, we have a whole thing about haunting, right?
That's right.
And I actually think they sort of mix up the sort of haunting that's happening here in some fun ways. And my hot take before we dive into the episode is this episode was clever, and it may have been too clever for its own good. But I smiled at all the cleverness and the winks and smiles it gives. But yeah, so I had been recently doing a little bit of reading into parapsychology, Alan, and just because that kind of stuff interests me.
Sure.
And the people who take it seriously really do take it seriously as a scientific study. I'm not talking about the ghost hunter shows where they seem like they're taking it seriously, but they're not trying the scientific method. I'm talking about folks who literally try to apply the scientific method and actual research methodologies that are accepted to quote unquote paranormal phenomena. And in those circles, they actually have those characteristics or those categories of hauntings. So anyway, we are entering that world for this episode of Buffy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. I see that this episode aired in 1998 on April the 28th, which we are nearly like dead on for that anniversary date almost.
Yeah, we're getting pretty. That is pretty close. That's very true. That's very true.
So do you have any like flash out of the pan sort of hot takes before we dive into the narrative of I Only Have Eyes?
No, I don't have. Well, okay. First of all, you've already heard me talk in previous episodes that this is one of the episodes I really like. Like from this season, I think that this is one of the better standalone episodes. And we'll talk about why I like it in a moment. But the big thing that that I always try to ask at the beginning of watching one of these Buffy episodes, because it's so much the DNA of the show, is thematically what were they trying to accomplish? And what I really like about this show, I think one of the things I really like about the show is that they had this idea of what are normal things that teenage girls go through. And they said, okay, Sadie Hawkins dance, you know? And what are the kinds of things that people experience around Sadie Hawkins dance? And the obvious one is regret that they didn't ask out the person that they wanted to ask out. And I think that this entire episode stemmed from, well, how can we push this theme of regret?
Yeah, probably. Just as an aside, I remember doing a quick search there on poltergeist just to make sure. Poltergeist, that's a German word. It's often like things making sounds and like it's like the objects that are often moved or something to that effect. I think the inhuman ghost might be the demonic, but it's important to note those things as we go forward because I'm just gonna say what I think the show's playing with, but.
Cool. I look forward to
it. Where you're at. Let's start at the beginning. This is what happens to start us off in the cold open here?
Well, so what we get first is we get a shot of the bronze. We see a band singing a song. The song seems like it's loosely related to the plot, so I think it was probably picked consciously.
Yeah.
then we see Buffy in the rafters in the upper part of the bronze, and we see a boy approaching her, and you know, because of the way he's approaching her, I think they're trying to play with the idea of, is this a predator or not? Because it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Then we quickly find out that he's just a guy who saw her in a math class last semester and has been hoping to, you know, take a shot eventually. and and he actually asks her if she wants to ask him to the Sadie Hawkins dance, which is a very, very funny way of going about it. And and there are a
Yeah, it
handful
was
of
cringy. Cringy, cringy,
yes,
like the
yes,
fact that she doesn't even remember him at all, like, she doesn't recognize him. He's like, "We were in class
yeah,
together," you know? It's like a small school. It's like, "Oh, boy."
yeah, yeah. That's the one with the chalkboards and the pencils and the books, right? Um,
Right, right.
so anyway, she basically turns him down, and I think that this is sort of a visual metaphor for the whole regret thing that we're about to be dealing with. And I think the other thing that they had going on here was they needed to remind the audience about all of the stuff related to Angel, so that when Angel shows up later on, all of that will make sense. So there's a huge exposition dump right after this as soon as she goes downstairs and sees Willow.
Yeah,
The
my reflection real quickly is
Yeah,
just that
please.
I noticed, you use the word forlorn, and I like that word in this, context.
Right.
I note Buffy's hair. It's the first time we've seen this particular hairstyle on her each
Nice.
show, and it is this way through the entire episode. I don't know if hair can have a personality. I'm assuming my hairdressing friends would say so.
Yes.
I think if this one does, it is more business oriented, pulled back, but a little bit for whatever reason, it's less curly, it's less bouncy, it's less playful, more adult, more sour. And her face, her expression is more sour, I would say. So the
Sure.
entirety of the episode, she is carrying this emotional, weight. It doesn't, like, happen later when all the supernatural stuff starts affecting her, it starts right here.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and she's on the fringes, like, she is I mean, it's interesting because at a dance, you could go to any dance, whether it's a Sadie Hawkins or your traditional prom, and it's quite, understandable to see people standing off on the sidelines without a date or too embarrassed to ask someone to dance, watching everyone else who's dancing. And Buffy is at the bronze where people are dancing, and she's on the liminal edge of it all, watching,
Yes.
just like that.
Yes.
So it's a parallel sort of
Oh, I
work.
love that. I love that observation. That's great. Um, So at the end of her conversation with Willow, basically Willow says something to the effect of, "Well, dating doesn't always have to be as bad as you're describing. It can be nice." And then we get a cut to this guy and girl who are clearly not being nice to one another. Um, it's and this is the very first time we see this sequence play out that we're going to see a few times in this episode. So the boyfriend grabs the girlfriend, and he's yelling at her, and uh she's clearly upset, and he basically says, say you don't love me anymore, and she says, is that what you need to hear? We get this whole sequence, um and he pulls out a gun, but that's when we cut to the opening credits.
That's right. And I don't know if you register it or not, but they are dressed, not they're dressed, I would say not completely out of time, but definitely not the way Xander dresses. If Xander is a boy, is a little over the top 90s. This is a little bit more, I guess, traditional or a little bit more conservative, preppy.
Yeah,
We're gonna
I
find
think
him.
there's a hint towards bygone era, and I think that's on purpose too.
Yeah, yep. Um, can we just say before you go through the credits that this is gonna be an episode where Principal Snyder comes back in, which is awesome.
Yes, yes.
Okay, there we go.
We'll see him in just a minute.
Yeah, alright.
So this is happening at the school. Now, one of the things that I think is a little bit weird here, I'll try to get my criticisms out of the way as they happen, is this entire sequence is happening at the school. We were just at the Bronze. Like, when
Right.
we had a hard cut to the school, and as he's holding the gun, and he yells at her, "Don't walk away from me, you bleep." Um, she's running away, and he's just about to pull the trigger, and Buffy shows up, and she tackles him, and the gun falls out of his hand. And do we see what happened to the gun in that moment? I know we do later, but I can't remember if we do here or not.
I can't recall either. Yeah, I don't know. Probably should write better notes, but
Um, yeah, I'm scanning through it right now just to make sure I'm telling you right. And what happens is we see the gun get knocked out of his hand, but then we don't see the gun again, right? So,
right.
so she's basically saying the next day we cut to Principal Snyder's
I mean,
office.
your criticism though is your criticism about the gun or the fact that we cut from the bronze to the school and Buffy just happens to be
Yeah,
there.
my criticism is exactly that. Buffy was at the Bronze, now Buffy's at the school, and the only thing that we have to, like, tie that together is the fact that Buffy just told Willow that she's gonna go patrolling and then sack out. And, so the audience is led to have to assume that this is 20 minutes later or something after Buffy's been patrolling, and she's decided she's gonna patrol in the actual, school building,
Right,
you
which is
know?
totally we've never seen that. So yeah. Yeah, it was sort of hard, it was sort of weird. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So, so anyway, Buffy, before we get to Principal Snyder, I guess I should say this. Buffy does not treat the boy who did this with any sort of kid gloves. She's like throwing him around like she does a vampire. And
Yeah.
and he's like, I don't understand why this happened. You know, what was I why would I have done that? And Buffy says, because you're a jerk. And then the girlfriend chimes in with, but he's not. Something happened to both of us. And, "How did you have a gun?" And, the janitor's quick to say, "Well, I don't see a gun." By the way, I recognize the janitor from an episode of The X-Files.
Dude, if you only recognize the janitor from an episode of the X-Files, you really been missing out.
I did only recognize him from an episode of the X-Files, so you have to tell me more. You have to tell me more later. Or
Well, no,
perha
I
or
mean, the guy's a huge actor, dude. He was in, I
tell
don't
me.
even have his name pulled up. Well, he was in one of my favorite independent films that made Jennifer Lawrence a star called Winter's Bone.
Oh, I've seen that. I just didn't recognize him from that. Great.
He's the crazy uncle, man. He's like the villainous sort of guy that's
Okay,
in
okay.
the background. But
Sure.
he's also Nathan Starr or, something like that in Deadwood. He's been in tons of things. He's, like, noted as a very, very, uh, like, just a very good character actor, but he does stuff that's got a lot of gravitas later on in his career.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Well, I'll keep an eye out for that then. That's awesome. Okay, so then we cut to the high school and essentially Principal Snyder's office where he is unconvinced that Buffy did anything positive here. She's like, but I saved him from I saved the girl from getting shot, you know, and Principal Snyder's like, we haven't found a gun. There's no gun. What are you talking about, you know? And he's
Right.
convinced, or he's acting as though he's convinced that, Buffy was up to no good here and that he's going to, uh, deal with her appropriately based on that.
Yeah, all that you just described is really early in the episode, and it happens really fast.
Yeah, yeah, this is all everything that I've just said is within the first 5 minutes of the episode. Yeah.
So to get to print, but what I'm saying is it feels just a little it's just a data dump. I mean, like you're
Sure.
saying, it's just getting a lot to get to Snyder, where basically the setup takes it's just a lot to take in a short bit, because we're gonna have to traverse time, which is what we're doing here. Um, like, so while she's in the office, right,
Mhm.
Principal Snyder, there's a yearbook that just falls off the shelf, right?
Yes.
And it's from 1955, which would have been 40 years prior to when this was set. Like,
Right,
this is set in 95 at the time, I
right,
believe. And so it's 40 years before, and that's tipping us off to maybe any suspicion we would have had that what she saw was something from the past, from the 1950s.
right,
And then the aesthetic continues to change throughout the episode where we see more of the clothing and more of the music, which is, why it's called "I Only Have Eyes for You." Lets us know that that's in fact the case. She's seeing something from the past, not necessarily um, something that is happening today with real life people. But
right,
anyway,
right.
later on, she's in class, we start to find out, more that something, wiggy is going
Sure.
on. They start using the word Wiggins a lot. I always comment on it, or I comment on it a couple times, but they're using Wiggins a lot now, which I like. But she is daydreaming or whatever she's doing in class, and it's
Mhm.
about the relationship between the boy and the girl that she sees, right? Or that she's
Yes.
and it's clearly the inappropriate relationship between an adult female teacher and a male um, student.
Student.
And and as she's daydreaming, she actually gets jolted back into the present, and then the teacher has been, like, talking and lecturing and writing on the chalkboard, and as he steps away from it, what he has written on the chalkboard is, what she's been hearing in the fight from the daydream, which is, "Don't walk away from me, bitch."
Yes.
And that's not what he said at all, and of course, the teacher sees it, and he's embarrassed, and he's trying to erase it, the other students are laughing about it.
Yes.
So it's the first kind of note to us that not only is this a residual haunting, right? Where there again, back to my little poor introduction of parapsychology, residual hauntings. They're the kind of thing where people suppose that you see the ghosts do the same thing over and over and over again, like they're just
Right.
replaying, or maybe like it's not even an intellectual entity that's acting it out, but that it's just energetic memory or the memory of energies that just kind of
Right.
replay, and there's some sort of quantum weirdness happening. This must be more than that because it's also intelligent, because it's engaging with the people who are actively alive in 1995.
Right.
It's making Buffy have some sort of daydream. It's making the teacher write something, so it's sort of possessive. And that's the thing about what the parapsychologists don't necessarily buy is that ghosts. So there's a difference between a haunting and a possession, right? But we think maybe right here there's a blending of the two, a haunting
Yes.
that somehow possesses.
Yes.
And I think the next thing that we see that's sort of spiritual, supernatural is from Xander, which is a pretty fun moment, I think, actually. Uh, Xander walking with Buffy, is that right? Or is it with Willow? They're walking to his locker.
Oh, it's Buffy walking with, Xander. That's exactly right.
He opens the locker, and out comes this hand from the locker, begins to just yank him into the locker back and forth, and it makes a scene, everyone gets to watch it, and, he's able to step back and slam the locker, and you see that his, shirt has been torn and tattered, which I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah,
I
that
I
was pretty fun.
I
And
thought of
that's
all the ways they
definitely
must have
more.
shot that,
Is
yeah.
that more poltergeisty based on what you're saying, or what is that?
Yeah, I don't know what that would be called, 'cause like a lot of times when you think of poltergeist, apparent according to parapsychology, not the movie,
Yeah, sure.
it's more like a book falling off the shelf, right?
Okay.
Or a moan, like something that would reach and grab you. I don't know if that would be an intelligent or a poltergeist or I that it and that also seems to be something that's not very frequent in that world, if you would,
Yeah.
but yeah, here we are blending
Yeah, yeah,
things,
yeah. I
and,
mean, I think there's a little bit of that overall, like, okay, I'll be realize that I love this episode. It's like one of my favorites. But I'll throw a little bit of shade at one thing that happens through this episode that has already been hinted at in the timeline of the episode. There was a scene with Willow where she was like teaching this computer class that she's taken over for Jenny Calendar,
yeah.
and which again is preposterous. But uh, Giles walks in and they have this quick conversation that sort of also reminds the audience that Jenny was Giles' girlfriend and that she's gone now. And Willow gives him this piece of quartz or whatever that she found in the desk or whatever in order to say, I think that Jenny would have wanted you to have this. It's she told me that it was healing quartz. And I think that that entire scene is there so that we have a way to make sense of why Giles later on, when when the Scooby Gang figures out that it's a haunting of some kind, Giles is dead set on the idea that it's Jimmy,
Yeah,
and
he is.
and I think that this whole scene was to set that up, and I think that the reason that all that material is there is to continue to say something about regret, because Giles never Giles and Jenny missed each other. Like, they were clearly interested in each other. They went on a couple dates, but when they were finally about to get together, that was when she got killed by Angel, or Angelus. And so I think that whole, like, Sadie Hawkins regret thing or whatever is a big part of why that was being thrown in there. But I gotta say, if I'm not looking at it from the perspective of thematic connection, it makes 0 sense.
Yeah. No, no, it's just yeah, it's trying to pull everyone into sort of a longing for the forlorn word is a good word that you brought up,
Yes, right.
for sure. Yeah, I also thought it was, cute and funny to see her, teaching and the joke she makes. I
Yes.
actually when I was watching this, my daughter was watching it with me, and, she said, "What's that mean?" I go, I don't even know. I don't even know if that's a thing," whatever she said.
Yeah, I
And
th I think that what made it funny was the fact that, like, only Willow knows what that means in the room, right?
right. Oh, yeah, totally, but I was like, "I don't even," you know?
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, yeah, yeah.
One more note that I wanna bring up, which is, because you just talked about Buffy having her, daydream moment in the classroom or whatever. It's the first time we've seen the teacher and the student who are engaged in this haunting. And I want to mention that both of them, I looked up both of them, and they both have these like incredibly long resumes. Mostly that seems like they've done character bits and different stuff. But the girl I totally recognized. When I first saw her, I thought that she might be I can't remember her name. The girl from the old Michael J. Fox TV show.
You mean growing, family ties?
Yeah, for a second I thought it was the girl from Family Ties, but that is not who it is. I knew I recognized her. She was in this movie that I really liked when I was a kid called, Dream a Little Dream.
Mm.
If you've never seen it, it's, one of those films with both the Coreys, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. It's one of their
Yep,
films.
yep, the 2 Corys, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought that that was an interesting tie because it's also got all the same surface level stuff that this one has. It's all about this guy who is an older gentleman, and he ends up possessing a younger guy. He's got all this stuff from the 50s. It's like got all
Mm.
that same kind of energy related to the time period. So I don't know how she got typecast in that particular set of ideas, but there's definitely something there.
In biblical studies, we would call this intertextuality, where you
I like that.
but a lot of times it's intentional. Maybe this was, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, yeah. So, Willow finds information, right, on the laptop about the 1955 event, like, she's doing some sleuthing, internet
Yeah.
sleuthing, right?
Yep, yep.
I think they have identified the names. The student is named the boy, his name's James Stanley, and he had killed the teacher named Grace Newman, which incidentally to me, do for whatever reason sound like very 1955, uh,
They do, they do.
names, as if, I mean, surnames are surnames, but still. After the affair, but, she's trying to break out the affair, and it's just like we've been seeing in this replay. A lovesick student, being broken up with by a teacher, and he shoots the teacher. Um, and so now we're starting to get a taste of what's going on here. I think we're at this point kind of, uh fully in the know, whereas Giles is not because he, like you said, is a little, as the youth would say, he's a little delulu. He's wanting this to be Jenny Counter, but it's not. It's these two other spirits, or at least it's one spirit driving it, and the other one is. I'm actually not certain that I watched carefully enough to know whether or not the spirit that's doing the haunting is just singular or plural.
I actually think it's a plural, and I think that because of what happens at the very end, and so we'll talk
Okay,
about that when we get there.
sure. Let's
Um,
start with the cafeteria.
oh, yeah, well, actually, before we get there, there's one quick scene right after this library scene
Gotcha.
where, we've got the janitor and one of the teachers, go through the entire sequence of the thing again, but this time, we see the ultimate resolution with the gun and him actually firing the gun. And then when the janitor comes out of it, he gets tackled by Giles, which is how he comes out of it. And he's like, "What happened?" And Giles is like, "You just shot a woman." And and I think that that was an important bit for us to see from a plot perspective, so we know that the cycle does in fact end with the shooting, so that we can when that happens later, we're aware of that bit.
Okay. All right. So then is that when they go right into the cafeteria?
That is when they go right into the cafeteria.
And
Oh,
what
actually,
happens
I'm
then?
sorry, I'm sorry. Before they go right into the cafeteria, we have a quick throwaway scene with, Angel, Drew, and,
Oh,
Spike.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I can't believe I skipped over that because that little love triangle is creating all the similar metaphorical things for it's just keeping lockstep with everything else. Spike gets to be the guy on the outside of the circle.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and Angelus continues to antagonize him. It's like at this point you start to wonder why Angel was ever or Spike was ever excited to see Angel. Because he just seems to be absolutely the worst to him.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
it's never like a friendship.
Well,
Uh,
I think, based on some of the stuff we see in Angel later on, I
yeah.
think that when Angel had, Darla in the mix, he would leave Drew alone, and then Spike had Drew to himself, you know what I mean? And so even though they have a little bit of antagonism there in some of those Angel episodes that I'm referring to, it's almost like, have you ever had a buddy who, you were totally trying to one up? I think that that's their relationship.
Yeah, perhaps. I was gonna say I probably did, but never intentionally or never knowingly.
Well,
Was
okay, so as a guy who grew up trying to be a musician,
mm.
I had a couple different musician friends that I would constantly, like, try to check out this thing that I can do, and they'd go, "Well, check out this thing I can do," and then I had to, like, go home and practice, you
Sure,
know?
yeah. That sounds nicer than what I imagined. I was thinking about no, I was thinking about my jealousies and things, but, I
Sure.
probably never admitted it. And anyway, so yeah, so there's a whole sorts of drama going on, setting up Angel's involvement that's gonna follow. Um But with the Scoobies, they're going to school because 'cause they're in school, and so they're gonna go to lunch in the cafeteria, and that's the next moment where we see some poltergeisty, haunting, apparition stuff. I'm not exactly sure what this is even called in the parapsychology world. Incidentally, there is this interesting I'm just gonna do an aside. There's this
Please.
Catholic a conservative Catholic apologist named Jimmy Akin. He's got a podcast called Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, and
Okay.
I love hate it. He looks at ufology and
Okay.
cryptozoology, and he studies all these different things. The shtick of the show is from the twin perspectives of faith and reason, right?
Okay.
And if he's gonna talk faith, he's gonna talk about it in a very traditional Catholic way. It's gonna be very about the councils, and it's gonna
Yep.
be about church law. And if he's gonna talk about reason, I mean, he's very reasonably minded. That likes the scientific method. He's clearly an autodidact. I think he promotes himself that way, meaning that he doesn't have tons of degrees, but he does lots of research, very smart. Um, but he's very conservative Catholic. So, I mean, it's a very particular vein of thinking. And sometimes I roll my eyes when he gets into stuff. But he teaches classes in parapsychology for the Rhine Institute, which used to be nestled in Duke University as a part of their Duke had like an entire like department that did research into the paranormal and, like, academic scientific research, and it's since, like, been removed from it, uh,
Okay.
financially or whatever, but it's, like, one of the few programs that was, like, legitimately trying to do scientific research on this. So he teaches parapsychology courses and parapsychology and religion courses for them. You can take it for credit, you can take it for, just, for funsies. I have totally thought of doing this just out of having a hobby of something, interesting to study where I'm not, on my own, I just thought it would be fun. Anyway,
I think that sounds fun too. Maybe that's
yeah,
the next podcast.
I don't know, but so 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 I was just listening while I was with you actually, when I was visiting, I was doing that conference at your school.
Yeah.
I was like, and in between things, I was listening to the episodes where he was talking about parapsychology. So like I started having to go back and looking into stuff, going, okay, what would he be saying, you know,
And
about this.
what do you think you would be saying?
Well, I think he would actually go, "Well, that's interesting," and because he's got this, and he's from Arkansas, so everything with an ing is in. So when he's talking about Jack the Ripper, he's like, "Well, there's a lot of killings. Let's talk about the next killing that happened." Like that's how he talks, and
Sure,
so,
sure, sure.
and so he would break it down and be like, "Well, this wouldn't really fit into this kind of apparition. It would be like," and he would like he would try to be very clinical about it, and then
Okay.
he might throw a little shade here and there about you would hear his politics come through here and there, but anyway, sometimes really great. All right, so I don't know what he would call this, but when they walk into the cafeteria, another spooky thing happens where everyone sees that there are snakes, right?
Yes.
on
On the
their
plates.
on their plates and food trays and on the buffet, and, yeah, and I mean, and anybody freaked out by snakes just would, freak them out, and so, it turns, like, the school into sort of, I don't know what you call it, a state of panic, but people start
Yeah.
taking off and fleeing, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's an infestation. That's actually and there's a subtle metaphor about what a haunting is, but spiritually, it's an infestation, and
Mhm.
it's gonna manifest itself as an infestation in 2 ways in this episode, one with snakes and then the other with maybe some sort of flies, but here's a bunch of snakes, and I believe that actually gets the authorities involved, does it not? Is that where the police come in with
Yeah, yeah, there's and I think it's some sort of animal control system as well.
Mhm.
And we get another shot of Snyder talking to, I don't know who he's talking to. I think it's a police officer or something.
Police chief. Now this is exactly where I thought of you because, uh, in season 1, there was an episode where you said I was like, "It's so strange because it's clear." It's like it was the episode where they had the X-File type FBI people,
Mhm.
and then Snyder's talking to police people. I think it's either the episode where they're at the fraternity or it's the episode where, there's a parent-teacher conference, and it's one of the ones where Snyder says everyone that broke in was on PCP.
Right.
But there he's talking about stuff with the law enforcement folks as though he's in the know of what's going on.
Mhm.
And you said, "Well, now don't forget that Snyder works in a system where there's a mayor who's the big bad. We're gonna find that out," which is true. We find out that the mayor is a big bad villain, but we don't know that even now.
Right.
Uh, and this is so this is like the first time we've approached that the mayor is in on some sort of conspiracy.
Yes.
And it goes so far as to actually reference the mayor. So now we know that more is up, and we also know because of the scene that Principal Snyder knows they're on the hell mouth,
Yes.
and he references that we're on the mouth to hell. So the adults, some of the adults in the society know what everyone's. They know why things go strangely in Sunnydale.
Right, 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 but not all of them, obviously.
Not all of them, right?
That's funny. So, so then we have a scene with, Cordelia and Buffy and Willow, and, they're still trying to put pieces together, like Willow put together some stuff earlier, but now she's, like, putting together more of the details of the specifics of the shooting that happened back in shootings that happened back in the 1950s. And she's got this like map of the school, and she's triangulated how the forces are working and all this kind of mess. And I thought that it was a little bit unusual to have that scene in one of their bedrooms or living rooms or wherever it is, and for Cordelia to be there until finally I saw Xander in the scene as well. I didn't see him earlier in it.
Yeah, yeah. And then it doesn't somewhere in this moment or of part in the show, isn't there a dream or Drusilla has a bit of a vision?
Yes, but it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm out of
No,
line.
that's totally okay. So after they figured this much out, uh, Willow leads them all to the school and hands
Mhm.
them these little pouches of I forget what she calls them. Do you remember this term?
No, I don't.
Oh yeah. So apparently they're very smelly, and she mentions that she had to substitute some ingredient for sulfur, which would work just as well, but it's very smelly.
Right.
And later on, she runs into Giles, and he says, "What's that smell?" And she says, "Oh, I have a." And she names the thingamajig. He says, "Is that sulfur?" Very clever, you know? So so acknowledging that Willow's starting to, like, figure out some of this pagan stuff. She just mentioned it earlier in the scene where she was talking about getting into Jenny Calendar stuff, and I think that this is a hint, b
Yes.
towards what's gonna happen in the next couple of episodes, and now we get
Mm.
Drusilla's vision.
No, take us away.
Drew is having one of her moments with Angel and Spike, and Angel and Spike are doing their typical like thingamajig, and Drew starts falling on the floor, and she's giggling or whatever, and you know they start asking, so Angel and Spike are asking her what it is that she sees, and she basically says, the Slayer, it's time, Angel. She's ready for you now. She's dancing,
Mhm.
and so with some marvelously like over the top crazy acting from Juliet Landau in
Oh,
this
yeah.
moment. Drew's basically the person that pushes Angel to go to the school
Mhm.
for what's going to be this culminating set of scenes. Um, I don't think that he would have shown up to have his role in that concluding scene if it hadn't been for Drew's vision, which I thought was really interesting because um, without Drew doing this business, he wouldn't have been there. So so I know that they needed it for a plot point, but outside of that, what forces would have compelled Drew to have this vision? I think there's either more complicated stuff going on there than I understand, or they're just using it as sort of a deus ex machina to make sure that everything happens the way that it needs to roll. I'm uncertain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would guess at this point. Because, I mean, ultimately, it's dangerous for Angel. Um,
Yeah,
so it's Willow who comes up with a plan, to contain or get rid of these ghosts, these
yeah,
spirits.
yeah, yeah,
They head to school, they prepare, Giles is still interested in trying to get, in touch with Jenny's spirit.
sure,
Still not convinced yet, right?
right, right.
But Buffy hears that music, the 1950s music, "I Only Have Eyes for You." It's coming from the music room, and there we get to see the 2 ghosts, James and Grace, they're dancing, and it's very sweet. But James, then there's, like, something that happens to his face, and it scares Buffy, and, I don't know if that's just, like, an omen, I can't make sense of it, just something spooky. Um, yeah. What is Willow what something happens to Willow in the stairwell as
Yeah,
she's doing.
so I think that this next set of sequence is one of the elements that you're probably talking about a lot here with regards to mixing and matching of various
Kinds of
ghost,
ghosts,
yeah,
yeah.
kinds of ghosts, kinds of hauntings, because now we get a couple different things. We get Willow who seems to be absorbed into the floor, and Giles has to hear her screams and come like pull her
Right.
out of the floor. It's almost like a quicksand kind of thing or something. Um, and Cordelia is looking at herself in the mirror. She got bit by a snake on the face, and so she's checking it, and then suddenly her face goes all um scarred and
Yeah.
in the mirror, and she starts freaking out. Um and then in addition to that, I think Xander goes through something too, but I don't remember what it is right off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's with the intensity or the over time, the intensity of these hauntings is increasing, and some, parapsychology thinkers or people who just are interested in theorize about hauntings think that, some of the ghost stuff might be unfinished business, and they may be wanting something from us, right? That's just one interpretation. And maybe the communication's not coming through clear enough, and so it's asking for more, or it's telling you to go away, get out of it, especially if a place is being haunted. It is interesting. I had a conversation with a Japanese exchange student family member the other day talking
Okay.
about Japanese horror. And I
Sure.
said there, because I've seen a couple good Japanese horror. I mean, there's really great Japanese horror,
Oh,
but
yeah, yeah, sure.
I've only probably seen, like, a handful of, like, really, really good ones that, I don't watch them all, so I've seen a
Right.
handful. Have you ever noticed that, like, as I understand, it's been explained to me and I've noticed that a lot of Western horror or haunting shows, a thing or places and things, places primarily, but things secondarily are haunted. That's what's
Yes.
haunted. Is in Japanese horror, people are haunted.
Yes.
And not even possessed by demons per se, but, like, haunted is like an entity latches onto another entity.
Mm.
And then she's a teenager, and she actually goes, she goes, "Oh my gosh, I never thought about that." And then we start talking about different films and things. So, um, just an interesting thing to think about whether or not this is doing both.
I think it
Uh,
is doing both. I think that's a great catch too.
right. Okay, well, we'll get to it.
Yeah, man.
Um, yeah, okay, so after Willow's saved from Giles, she's able to convince him finally, "Hey, look, this isn't Jenny, okay? Get it through that British mind of yours. This is not Jenny," and he finally believes her. And it's around that same time that this infestation of wasps or bees or whatever, the graphics are pretty poor, but such was the time. It starts to come down the hallway and begins to chase out every living human person out of the school. and they all stand in front of the school looking back at it as a swarm of bees
Yes.
or wasps. It's like a wall, and they're like, basically, well, I think, no one's going to school tomorrow, and there's some humorous lines between Xander and Cordelia about, like, who cares about that? Like like, 3 cheers for the bees, basically. And that's in one of those scenes where the Scoobies are gathered together, and they're trying to recollect themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, and, but it gives enough cover for Buffy to sort of escape the fray, like, she slips out because the entire time she's been forlorn and sad, and her hair looks the way it looks. So the entire time, she's got the feeling of Angel that she's mourning still, that she's been this entire season or since Angel has changed, and she's being drawn into the narrative of the student and the teacher, right? She's being, like, pulled into it, almost as if they are possessing her um, to write into their emotional drama. Is that how you would feel about it or describe it?
Yeah, and I also think that, we get a scene here where we clearly experience, Buffy's identification with, um, the emotional elements of the situation, you know? So
Mhm.
so, as the Scoobies are collecting themselves and trying to figure out what's going on, they have a conversation about what does he want? Well, you know, because they've determined that they think that the main antagonist of the ghost pair is James. Is his name James? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
James.
James. Um, and um, and they're basically saying, what does he want? And someone, I think it's Giles, says, I think he wants forgiveness. Might have been Willow. And
Mm.
and then there's this very um clear conversation where Buffy basically says, "Well, why should we forgive him?" You know, or something to that effect. And he did this terrible thing, and now he's going to have to live with it. And then Xander says, "Well, he can't live with the Buff. He's dead." Um, and and as she walks out, Cordelia actually makes the comment that Buffy's clearly identifying with this. Identify much. Um, and I think that I think that. I think that that was a good scene because it sort of helped us understand where Buffy's at emotionally with this. It helped us understand how everyone else is seeing the situation, and it sort of gave us a really clear idea of how we might experience closure for the episode. Um, but at the same time, if I were throwing shade, what I would say is that I don't know. I feel like it was a little stilted. It was a little bit too much of a crazy exposition dump. I feel like if they had a little bit more time in the episode, they could have dropped all these nuggets a little bit more spaced out instead of it having to be this direct of a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. That tends to be the case in, these hour long 40-minute long
Yeah,
episodes,
exactly.
right? Doing big themes. Well, Buffy slinks away. She's, more and more angry at this James character, and Um, she sees the sign in the kitchen for that 1955 Sadie Hawkins dance. I looked up Sadie Hawkins dances last night when I was watching this,
Oh,
and
yeah.
apparently originated from the comic strip Little Abner,
Okay.
which I've only ever heard the name and title Little Abner. I don't know what it's about, but it is a southern based cartoon strip.
Yeah, yeah.
Where Sadie Hawkins, I think, as a character, is asking, she or maybe wasn't the character, she kept asking men to the dance or whatever. I always felt weird about Sadie Hawkins dancing. It's supposed to be this whole, like, role reversal,
Yeah.
in society. Typically, men or boys are supposed to ask girls to dance. This is the time the girls ask the boys. Uh, like, I don't know that that's, some sort of feminist win or not. I don't think it is. I just think it's all sort of strange, but whatever. Um, there there's this moment when she notes the dance flyer or whatnot and puts the thing away in her pocket, the flyer, and James's voice whispers and she hears, I need you. And that's what kind of pulls her. She's got this lure, like this thing that's pulling her to the school. Almost like I don't want to say fugue state, but she's almost like she's not fully and control of herself, and she walks to school, she just leaves the house, no one's the wiser
Right.
until, she's gone, and when she gets to school, like an opening to a door, the wasps open and let her come in, and the doors to the school open. It's just I mean, if they could have visually pulled it off with better effects, that would've been really cool. I mean, I thought it was
Yeah.
a really cool sort of way of thinking about it. It's like, it only wants her. It does
Right.
not want any other human living person. It wants Buffy.
Right.
At that point, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, and obviously it also wants Angel because he was able to get through the same opening, we just don't see it. We
Right.
see him in there afterwards, and, and I thought that that was really interesting that these 2 ghosts call Buffy and Angel together for this moment, which, by the way, I feel like well, I'll get there when we get to the actual closing scene.
Well,
Um,
that's the thing that you don't know at the part. You don't know that Angel's called in, but when you do, you realize that this show is being clever and it's role reversal all the time. So that's what Sadie Hawkins' dances are.
right, right, that's
Everywhere
exactly right.
in this, there's a role reversal, right? Like the
Mhm.
teacher, there's a weird thing about a teacher having in a relationship with a student. I know that it's happened with women student teachers to boys, but we tend to think about it the other way around, where men are the predators because this would have been sexual predation. However, it ends with the boy, harming the teacher, harming the woman, which and so everything is what I'm saying is kind of flipped upside down in some sort of reversal.
That's a really, really great catch, and now that you've said it, I'm noticing the fact that, the reason Giles is off of this game is because they had to reverse who got the
Yes.
information,
So Willow
and
becomes that. He
yeah,
becomes a hapless kid
mhm,
because of his romantic I mean, and he's mourning, and then and in this
and Willow
form
becomes the leader of the gang instead of Buffy.
that's exactly right, and then Buffy becomes James, and
Mhm.
Angel becomes the teacher. So during the Sadie Hawkins, so she becomes the male and he becomes the female.
Yes,
So it's a lot of winks and smiles and
right.
nudge. And I go, "Oh, you're too cute." Whoever did this one, I thought they were being very clever. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
Marty Noxon wrote this.
well, and this gives all sorts of melodrama, right? This gives
Yeah,
Buffy and Angel the opportunity, and so Sarah Michelle Gellar and David Boreanaz to play the lovers again instead of the enemies, and
right.
it's exercising that internal muscle where Buffy's still there. I mean, clearly they're both possessed, which is interesting. This the question is, can a demon that possesses a human body, which is the definition of a vampire, can that demon in fact be possessed by a ghost? I guess the answer is yes. And then I guess that means that the ghost in some way has priority or power over the vampire. I mean, lots of interesting questions that they don't care to really answer.
Right.
But it gives us this whole like opportunity for a little wish fulfillment where
Sure.
the lovers come back together, they kiss. And if you're really gross like me, you've noticed that the saliva like lingers between their lips as they kiss. I mean, it's a wet, sloppy, juicy kiss. I'm like, "Oh,
Sure.
yeah, I'll
Well,
let happen."
the other thing that I think that this episode does now that you've gotten us here is, I think it's actually like an echo or a pre-envisioning of how the whole, season's gonna end, because you have the conflict between them, uh, Buffy kills Angel, and then Angel comes back and kisses her, it's the whole thing, man.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, in the scene where they're making out, where they're James and the teacher, Buffy ends up pulling the gun, just like it's being replayed. So, the haunting is residual, but it's also intelligent. It's perhaps a little bit poltergeisty, but it's also possessive. So, she's going to act out the residual memory. She shoots Angel.
Yep.
I couldn't quite get a handle on where the Scoobies were in this moment, but they're somehow there in the ether watching something.
Right.
Because I thought to myself, if they had any wherewithal, they could go stake Angel as he is laying down gunshot. Uh, they don't because the end of the story is what happens to the young man, right? The young man ends up taking his life, right? That's
Right.
the that's what's going to happen to Buffy. This is going to end this is going to it's just a cyclical thing, and it's gonna happen with someone killing themselves.
Mhm.
So she shoots Angel. Angel tumbles over like the teacher does, and then Buffy goes off to another classroom and is in deep agony and despair, wants to end her life because she's being James, who
Right.
is in agony and despair.
Right.
Who saves her?
Angel does.
Angel does. Angel shows back up, but not as Angel, right? Angel's still
Angel's still possessed by the teacher.
yes,
And
the teacher. I'm
so
gonna
and
get her
so
name.
she's coming in to basically offer James forgiveness. Like
Right.
this is how we get the closure for the whole repetition of the ghost angst or whatever is James wants forgiveness. He finally gets it because Angel, when he gets shot, doesn't
He
die because
he
he's a
doesn't die.
vampire.
Because he's a vampire, he gets to fulfill what Grace Newman, the teacher, would have done, which is the teacher in death even would have forgiven James.
Yes.
There you go. That's the fancy little metaphysics we're playing with here.
Yes.
And, so there's this moment of resolution for James and Mrs. Newman.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So they exchange apologies, they kiss some more. No, this is where they kiss. This is where the saliva thing
This is where the
happens.
saliva thing happens. That's
Alright,
right.
alright. And after finding peace, there's resolution.
Mhm.
The 2 ghosts leave, right? They're about
Yes.
so and it's probably one of the coolest moments. It's almost like you hear a cat
Mm.
growl, and
Uh-huh.
Angel just pushes Buffy away, and he backs away, he recoils and runs away, he's gone. But it is very effective because it's very fast.
Mhm.
It is one of the more, sleek bits of filming action in Buffy. Like
Hmm.
it's not meant for you to see all the action, right? But to me it gets the effect in like spot on. Like he recoils and flees, and you don't
Yes.
have to see him running away haplessly. You get the release when you see him what he's doing, which is he's somewhere in some gardeny type place with his friends, Spike and Drusilla, with his shirt off, and he's just washing himself repeatedly until Spike's like, "Listen, your skin's gonna fall off if you keep washing
Yeah.
yourself," right?
Yes.
Um, and the thing that grosses him out, why he's washing himself, it's not that he was making out with a dog, and so he's got dog breath like Lucy from Charlie Brown with
Right.
Snoopy. The
Sure.
dog breath. It's not that it was bodily fluids that were gross. It was that it was love.
Mhm.
He couldn't get the love off of
Oh,
him
yeah,
fast
yeah,
enough.
right, right.
And there's this little talky talk about, Drusilla's like, "Let's go get your mind right. Let's go get a nice little baby." And they invite Spike, but then Angel really coldly and meanly turns around and says, There's not enough time before sun comes up, and we don't need any what does he say? It's a play on words, but he's like, "We don't need anyone slowing us down."
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
remember what the play on words is either, but you're exactly right. It was
but your
some
wheel, yeah, because he's still in the wheelchair,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right. And then
Finish us out.
so then they leave. Angel and Drew leave, and then Spike stands up, which
Yeah,
is
and
sort of the cue that he's healed, but he doesn't want Angel to know that he's healed. And we don't really know why he doesn't want Angel to know that he's healed.
no clue. Yeah, he's playing a longer game.
Mhm.
And, so that's happening there. Is anything going on back at the base, back with the goodies?
Yeah, Buffy sits down to have a conversation with Giles. I don't know that she's sat down to have a conversation. She has a conversation with Giles, and she's clearly like sort of trying to rest after the events of the evening. But she's really weirded out because James identified with her, and she didn't understand that, and now she's starting to get that she's the one in the relationship between her and Angel that can't let it go.
Mm. Vox rated this number 45 out of 144.
Mhm.
You really like it. I think what I like about it is that ostensibly it is a monster of the week that
Yes.
is able to pull in the themes having to do with the greater mythology and as you say, tee it up for other stories to come. So that to me is where it's the Monster Week operates on its very best, right? We're
Yes.
like multi-leveled
Yeah,
and
yeah.
And I think that the themes are really, really, really good, in the metaphors of role reversals and stuff. I think that's fun. So, that's my I said
Sure.
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, one of the reasons that I like this one a lot is because when I sort of remember back towards Buffy, for whatever reason, there are a couple moments in this one that always come back to me, you know? I don't I don't have any idea why, but anytime anyone says, "So what do we know?" The very first thing that hits my head is, uh, "Dog spit is cleaner than humans," which is a Xander line in this episode,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's another line like that in here, but I can't think of what it is right now. But yeah, there are a couple like really, really memorable moments. Um, and as a result, this one constantly sort of jumps up for me in the forefront of my brain.
Well, I like that we're teased about the mayor. I like that we're teased that there's, something going on at the government level.
Mhm.
And I do like the setting up for the finale. There's a criticism here from the AV Club on, I believe, or is it the BBC, that the season finale should not have been tipped off until the next episode, which I don't know why. That's a big deal. But I'm not even gonna read it out loud. I'm just like, okay, whatever. It did, and I thought it's kind of fun. So
Sure. I mean,
leave
the
it
next
as it is.
we have one more episode before we get the two-part season finale,
Right.
and I assume that what they're basically saying is that, they would prefer to have been teased and then automatically get the conclusion of being teased, as opposed to having to wait an extra an extra week, which is just kinda funny.
Yeah, whatever. Well, listen, hey, before we wrap up, I'll say that
Yeah,
I've been reading, I get lots of news stories on this reboot, and a lot of, mostly it's not news, it's just speculation and
sure,
desire from the writers.
sure.
And there's a lot of people saying like the characters that should come back and the ones that shouldn't. And one of the ones that people don't want to come back, or at least opinion makers, is Giles. They'd like to let Giles rest, like to let him like stay. And I'm like, nah, I could do with some more Giles, man. I
Yeah.
really could.
I think
I do
Giles is one of the characters that makes the most sense to come back.
Yeah, I think the Scooby should in some way be back. Like, it'd be great to me to see them continue their friendship, like, not just, like, move on. I mean, they went through all that trauma together. That's a binding thing.
Yeah, sure.
There's questions about, like, faith, there's questions about Angel, Spike, all this stuff, but I don't need to see Anya. I don't need to see, Mark Lucas's character who comes in season 4 with the initiative. I don't wanna see anything but the initiative. Uh But one thing I think that they suggested that I do like is, like, they need to stick closer to vampires, because a problem that these seasons sort of run into later is that the big bad gets bigger and bigger outside of the realm of the vampires, right? And, like, at
Yes.
some point, you're just dealing with you have to create metaphysical layers, like God dimensions and stuff. It becomes, like, too much, right? It becomes too hard to deal with, unwieldy. I think I agree with that.
Mhm.
So, anyway, we could talk more, but any last words from you?
No, man, I'm looking forward to, the season finale coming up. To be honest with you, off the top of my head, I don't remember the episode Go Fish with the exception of just a couple beats that I'll bring up when we talk about it, but I'm really looking forward to the season finale. Lots to say about it.
Okay. All right. Well, see you guys for now. Take care and God bless.